It's been a hot minute since I spoke about the Alyssa Mercante frivolous lawsuit against me, but we finally have some movement on the case and I can finally report at least an update. And that's what this video is going to be all about. What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Smash JT. Ron Coleman, my lawyer, who is an absolute boss, had a phone call with me the other day discussing a situation that is transpiring right now. And while I can't go into too much detail on what we talked about, because everything I say is being listened to by the other side, suffice it to say that I am very confident in the standing that we have right now. And Ron Coleman has moved forward with pushing for a dismissal in a 3-page letter to the courts explaining why this lawsuit is so completely frivolous, useless, a waste of the court's time, and in my humble opinion, clearly someone who is not using the law the way it was meant to be implemented. And because of that, we find ourselves in a situation where the court could potentially just outright dismiss this case because there's really nothing here. Hit that subscribe, give me a like, and check out smashjt.com for the full article breaking down why Alyssa Mercante's frivolous lawsuit might just get tossed out. The legal battle between me and former Kotaku senior editor Alyssa Mercante has finally gotten in motion. My attorney, Ron Coleman, has officially filed a motion, like an absolute boss that he is, to request the outright dismissal of Mercante's defamation lawsuit, arguing that the case itself lacks both legal and any actual factual merit. Now, for those of you that missed out on all of this, first off, have you been living under a rock? But if you don't know, just a quick catch you up, Alyssa Mercante decided to move forward with a lawsuit against me because she feels like me talking about her and the tweets that she made somehow were defamation against her. And if you could make sense of that, maybe you'd be a good lawyer, because I'm a little bit confused. But if you missed any of that, I have an entire backlog of videos covering every single step along the way of her missteps, which people are trying to turn into that's somehow harassment by covering how she's been going after me this entire time. I mean, I guess if you want to simp for someone, go ahead, but it doesn't make much sense. The lawsuit immediately gained quite a bit of traction in the gaming community due to the aggressive and some could argue illegal nature of her claims. In response, I launched a crowdfunding campaign that has now garnered well over $60,000, surpassing my initial goal of $25,000 needed to have a retainer fee for Ron Coleman. And the outpouring of support from everyone showed me the tremendous amount of skepticism that many people had against what Alyssa Mercante was trying to do with all of this. And as the case began to progress and time passed, Mercante began deleting a significant number of her past tweets, which I covered in a previous video, and was noted by analytics on Social Blade. While the deletions raised concerns that she was attempting to remove evidence that could undermine her case, it added to the controversy that Mercante is making conflicting statements about her departure from Kotaku, publicly claiming that she voluntarily left before any kind of widespread layoffs, but in her lawsuit later revealing that she was let go and had to have her contract bought out, contradicting her earlier statements and damaging her credibility. And even in that same lawsuit that she levied against me, conflicted what she says at the beginning of it, saying, oh, I actually got bought out, but this is the reason why I left, was because Smash JT was making these situations happen, and that's why I left Kotaku. She couldn't pick a lane, and because of that contradicts herself in her own lawsuit. Ron Coleman said, Dear Judge Brody, we represent defendant Jeff Tarzia in the reference matter and submit this correspondence pursuant to your pre-motion letter requirement. Defendant seeks to file a motion to dismiss the complaint pursuant, and then all this stuff going into specific days and all that, and then says we briefly outline our anticipated submission below. 1. Lack of personal jurisdiction. The complaint acknowledges that the defendant, Mr. Tarzia, is a resident of California. There are no allegations, nor could there be, that he conducts business in the state. Plaintiff's jurisdictional allegations amount essentially to an allegation that Mr. Tarzia has directed his conduct towards plaintiff, a New York resident, which has resulted in the generation by him of revenue. Courts routinely recognize that, quote-unquote, placing allegedly defamatory content on the internet and making it accessible to the public does not constitute the transaction of business in New York, even when it is likely that the material will be read by New Yorkers, and he sources a case that had already confirmed that. Here the complaint's jurisdiction allegations track, providing for personal jurisdiction over the non-domiciliary who commits a tortious act without the state causing injury to a person and property within the state, except as to a cause of action for defamation of character arising from the act, expects or should reasonably expect the act to have consequences in the state, and derives substantial revenue from interstate or international commerce. So Ron here is making the point of Smash JT is making commentary on situations revolving around everyone in the industry. It's not specific to Alyssa Mercante as much as clearly she wants it to be. That's not what I do. And here's the situation when people point at, oh, look at all these videos Smash JT made on Alyssa Mercante. He's definitely guilty. And then you look at the videos and it's like, oh, he's actually just reacting to constant attacks and threats from her specifically. It's pretty ironic when you actually dig further than just surface level. But then again, that requires a little bit more intellect than the average NPC on Twitter. In fact, many legal precedents have come before to support this very argument, as courts have ruled that merely posting content online, regardless of someone's accessibility in New York, does not establish grounds for a case if the defendant has no direct business ties to the state, which I don't. This in itself could be the fatal flaw in Mercante's case from the jump, and it's the first thing that I was talking about as well when this all came up. I'm like, you trying to sue someone on the internet for mean words being said? You're gonna have a bad time. Beyond jurisdictional issues, Coleman asserts that Mercante's complaint fundamentally fails to state any actual valid claim for defamation. We chatted on the phone for a bit about this thing in particular. The lawsuit is nothing more than an attempt at being intertwined with some sort of politically charged culture war topic and relies heavily on political rhetoric, much of which is created and pushed forward by Alyssa herself, where in reality, it lacks any kind of factual grounding needed to make a defamation claim be successful. Like, sure, you can sue anyone for anything at any time, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to win. Because Mercante is a public figure, she has to meet a higher standard level of proving actual malice. This means she needs to demonstrate that anybody's statements were knowingly false or made with reckless disregard for the truth. Simply labeling statements as false is not enough in the eyes of the court. There must be concrete evidence to substantiate the wild claims and accusations that she's making at me. Pair that with how everything I've been covering up to this point was simply pointing out the very things she's been saying all along. It doesn't bode particularly well for her chance of success, and what it ultimately boils down to is someone's really angry that they're being called out for who they are. On top of that, Coleman highlighted that the complaint doesn't even specify any kind of special damages, which is a requirement under the standard set for defamation cases. Without any kind of clear allegations of harm directly resulting from any of my statements, the case lacks the necessary legal foundation for any chance of success. Again, what many have been saying all along, it's not really that surprising, and while, like I said earlier, technically you can sue anyone for anything, it doesn't mean you're going to win. And again, I keep going back to that, is she's got nothing here. But in page 3 of the letter is where Ron really slams the hammer down. He dives even deeper, stating that one of Mercante's claims in a slew of allegations was what I referred to her as being a quote-unquote whore. However, Coleman counters this by citing multiple public statements by Mercante herself, where she openly discussed working in industries that involved suggestive actions for money. He specifically states, in any event, plaintiff's own online content establishes that, as a matter of law, she cannot establish either that the characterization of her as a whore, that is, a woman who has multiple sexual partners or is sexually promiscuous, was either damaging to her reputation or even false, as shown in the screenshot to the right as just one exemplary post by her on X. And that's a post stating, I used to write a sex blog. I was in a Boston bar looking for content, talking to an Olympic swimmer. A Shakira song was playing and her music video was on the TVs in the bar. Unprompted, he went, she's kind of fat. So I decided to sleep with him because I knew it would be bad. It was. I eviscerated him in a post. Everyone got a pseudonym, and he messaged me for weeks after, begging me to take it down and asking if I really did hear him farting all night. I did. Ron continues. As to more explicit allegations, the full context of the defendant's statements is provided by various online posts by the plaintiff herself. To meet her burden under New York law, her allegations must plausibly allege not only that the depiction of plaintiff regarding sex work, as well as the exchange of sexual favors were false, but the defendant knew they were false, or was recklessly indifferent regarding their falsity when he made them. He even includes the now deleted screenshots from Mercante's X account, where she went on to try to hide all this after the fact. By using Mercante's own words against her, Coleman argues that she cannot meet any kind of burden of proof that any of my statements that I've ever made about her were not just not damaging, but you can't even prove that they're false. That's kind of a critical point to make in all of this if all I'm doing is using your entire words against you and you're saying you can't say that about me, only I can. Coleman also goes on to reference New York's anti-SLAPP laws, which are designed to prevent frivolous lawsuits like this one appears to be, intended to suppress actual free speech. He argues that Mercante's lawsuit would qualify as this and that, ironically, I am the one that would be entitled to compensation, including attorney's fees and legal costs. But that would be a battle to fight down the road, assuming the suit isn't dropped along the way for any other reasons. But as far as the bigger picture is concerned with this, the motion to dismiss is more than just a legal maneuvering. It exposes major weaknesses in Mercante's case, which I go into a lot more detail on smashjt.com if you want to read up on everything wrong with this case. Ron closes the letter saying, defendant submits that in the light of the Twitter X post shown above, plaintiff cannot meet this burden, that each and every claim for relief in the complaint suffers from comparable deficiencies, that plaintiffs do not have a plausible path to amending the complaint, and that New York's anti-SLAPP law entitles defendant to relief including attorney's fees and costs, and references an anti-SLAPP case, and then signs it respectfully submitted, Ron D. Coleman. And while no case out there is a complete open door slam shut case of guaranteed you're going to win your anti-SLAPP suit, what this looks like is the beginning of at least getting the case tossed out. And if this gets sent back to the courts and the courts present this to Alyssa's lawyers and Alyssa's lawyers are like, ah crap, they're right. We need to amend our lawsuit and actually find something that he did because what we submitted the first time isn't the greatest look, and also is going to delay any kind of proceeding down the road, assuming it even gets to that point in the first place. So again, I look at the situation as it's not a great idea to continue pursuing a lawsuit against me, in my humble opinion, as this is the quintessential prototypical definition of what anti-SLAPP laws were created for in the first place, but don't let the facts get in the way of a good lawsuit. If Alyssa continues down this road, I don't foresee it being a good path for her to go, but maybe I'm just being a little bit biased. I would recommend dropping the suit, taking the L, and moving on with your life, because this is embarrassing. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Again, if you guys want more information, check out smashjt.com for the full article. I go into a lot more detail as far as the facts, the information, and everything Ron talks about in his letter for dismissal of this case. And I'm very hopeful that the court will take it under consideration and realize how stupid all of this is. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that join button if you appreciate what I'm doing. And as always, you stay smashing. Smash Smash